that might. Okay. This will lay it on. There it goes on. So.
Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting, 2nd of August at 4 o'clock. The first item will be to review the minutes of July 6th. So you can
I didn't have any issues.
anticipate a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to, hello?
We have a motion already, Chris motion. You want to second it?
Second?
Okay, good. Discussion on it.
I have none.
I would request that under the discussion on the transfer station, under the first paragraph, that you please add that Selectman Nozel stated she considers this work an emergency.
Now, give me a number there, please. Let's see. Oh, on the first page?
And under the first paragraph where it's talking about the transfer station, there's a little one.
Yep, okay.
I just thought you could put that there. Mm-hmm.
And you'd like to place that where?
After the end of that first paragraph.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, then we can vote on the motion as amended. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Now the next one is the minutes of the 19th. We can
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on it?
I have none.
I don't have any.
All right. All in favor of the minutes of the 19th? Say aye.
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 Thank you. Under the no communications under the American Recovery, I think at this point we're trying to distill down and come up with some names for the ultimate appointments here. I think we have some suggestions that Mary Jo you put forward. Chris had some as well. We might approach things in groups such as emergency services, social services, arts, tourism, hospitality, business, industry, although we don't think we have any real industry, certainly internal finance and infrastructure. Just some categories, and we might even expand on that. Now, I think logically when we talk about emergency services, for one, we have ambulance, fire, emergency management, police. I think if we have all mentioned Dave Roberge perhaps being involved with that, which then could network out into the individual services as we need input. On social services, we have talked about Jennifer Datum and Mary Seidner. Both of those individuals would be willing to help us out on that. that could be an important one because it covers a couple of different elements. Arts and tourism and hospitality, not talking lodging so much, perhaps restaurants and so forth, the Arts District. A name, Cheryl Poirier, came up as the person quite involved with the Arts District. And I'm just looking at other lists here. Okay, then business, I actually called a couple of members, or I called John Forbes, having to do with business, because the mentoring core of community development, John suggested I speak to a couple of members of that who have particular expertise in perhaps organizing something like this. He suggested Dennis Powers and Ralph Wood, two individuals from that. And that's not to say we couldn't consider other people, but those gentlemen have been working with different business organizations in town trying to assist them, and so that might be a nice way to cover that field. Our finance director, Nicole Sadahar, would be very important with respect to how we keep track of things internally. And in terms of municipal infrastructure, Phil Parkak, our facilities person, he'd be good there. Ed Adante would be another person to work on things that might be project related. With respect to the public health, Mary Jo, you mentioned Ledge Light. I think organizations outside of O-Line, we would certainly get guidance from them in terms of their being part of a committee. I don't know that we would want to have people outside of the area initially. We'd probably want to radiate out and get opinions from different people, but not necessarily right there. Economic development, that is more of the business thing. Howard Margolis was mentioned. He might be involved along with the MCCD people, give us some good input there. Senior Center.
Tim, I'd like to just go back. Could I just go back to public health?
Yeah.
I really feel that before you discount Ledge Light being part of our committee or somebody representing Ledge Light, I mean, they certainly are keys to everything public health during COVID. And I think, even Chris Magnuson, who was in Old Line until maybe a year or two ago, might be a good fit. So I'd like to have us stay open on that because certainly they have their tentacles into everything public health, both at the state level and our region level.
Right, and as I say, this initial group that we might, whether it's today or at the next meeting, actually appoint, subject to people being willing to serve, we could of course open it up to other people. We'll consider that because that could be an important one.
Well, we also have Tom Gatalka, who is our Old Line representative out at Ledge Light, who lives in Old Line, who you might want to consider also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's see. On your list, we had a WPCA representative. Is that because of the water sewer aspect?
Correct.
So I don't know whether we need to have that sort of on this initial group. Certainly as we consider the infrastructure, if we were to look at sewers, then indeed we would pull in probably somebody from WPCA. I think that right now the beaches are funding their own, and the Soundview one is under the auspices of the town of Oline, but the repayment, at least the plan for repayment, is that the homeowners and businesses would be paying for that portion of it through the 20-year loans and so forth. But if we got into that, we would certainly rely on somebody from the WPCA to assist us. Public Works we already talked about. On your list, you mentioned the Technology Committee. That I know that there's broadband as one of the categories that is involved in one of the allowable projects that they talked about. Whether that is something we want to get into, we could call upon somebody as the time approaches. Affordable housing, I don't know whether that would fit at this point anyway under COVID, but it's something to keep in the background too. Same with open space. I don't think that would be an allowable use of funds just on the surface of things.
Well, we can always add groups and people to it as
yeah,
time goes on.
I think if we start with a core group, and then as we get into it, we will we'll hear more about what the rules are. We'll hear more about what other municipalities are doing, and certainly we could expand it. There's nothing wrong with expanding it. I think starting out with, say 10 people or less makes good sense, and then radiate out of that as we need it. And on the Board of Selectmen, we could have one of us writing herd on that as well, kind of keeping track. So I think
we should include a member of the community at large also.
Okay, well, we could consider that. I guess we could make suggestions. A lot of people who would be joining us are community members themselves, but so let's see. Do we have any other suggestions?
Well, like the fire department, the ambulance, that all falls under
I think so.
emergency management.
I think so, because we don't want to be too redundant with things. Certainly if one of the services comes up with something, we could reach out to that particular department for more information, but it's hard to estimate. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Jen, and I'll add something.
Well, I'm saying it's difficult to determine how frequently such a group would meet, and we can develop the mission statement. That would be part of it, and once we start trying to quantify where groups of money, certain blocks of money might go, then we could drill down and figure out. I know that the Community Foundation of Southeastern Connecticut, or Eastern Connecticut, reached out, and they have a variety of social services and that would sort of complement the social service need that we're talking about. So it'll be an evolving thing. So maybe if we got an initial group that would be willing to work on this, then we could expand as needed.
Yeah, I think we should also consider adding a member of the town hall staff, that worked throughout COVID. As you know, one of the allowable uses, or even recommended uses, if you will, of the ARPA funds are bonuses to people that work through the pandemic.
Well, if Nicole were there, she would be a town hall person for sure.
Yep.
Okay, well, why don't...
Same with businesses in the community. I think I have that on my list. For example, someone representing the shopping center or Big Y in particular, where the stores remained open and the clerks worked throughout COVID to support us. One of the allowable uses is to provide bonus funding to be given to what I consider first responders in that regard.
Yeah, or actually even somebody from the shopping center itself, which of course is home to a good variety of, and that would fall under the umbrella of the business one. Yeah. Okay, well let's do this. I'll put this together and circulate it. Maybe we can start working on a mission statement. It's really to decide how we can utilize these funds to the best of our ability. So there's no rush at this point. We have 2 years to come up with how we would like to spend the money, and then 2 years to actually accomplish that spending. So it's a longer time frame than usual, but the sooner we can decide things, the more help we would get out to people.
Right.
Okay, good. All right, turning to old business, the Soundview Sidewalk project. Mary Jo.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. I want to find my notes here. The committee met last July 8th, and our next meeting is August 10th, 4 o'clock, WebEx. Our meetings are virtual. The engineer who is supporting the town, DSC Group, is contacting our contractor, Martin Lavero, to request specific cost elements for the transit hub development. And the selectmen know the transit hub is essentially a bus stop that was planned to, again, provide other means of access to the beach for people, so that people can take the bus, they can put their bikes on the bus, and they can be brought down to Soundview or leave Soundview after a lovely day utilizing our businesses and the beach. Because our initial construction bid was better than expected, we had this extra funding, and the committee voted to move forward with the transit hub and its design. Our initial budget from the contractor of $104,850 exceeds what's left of our $400,000 construction grant by just over $18,000. So the committee has to make some decisions at our next meeting as to which elements we can work with and which will have to put off to either other grants or to maybe request budget from the town. But the basic cost of the transportation hub is $41,950, and the committee approved that at our last meeting on July 8th. So most likely, we'll, have to prioritize some elements at our next meeting. And I'm thinking probably, again, just the basic shelter, the pad for the shelter. Tim, you're working on getting us the shelter at some point here, right?
Yeah. Transit District would help us with that.
Yep. Okay, so we're hoping to have this all done by October, if that helps them. The gravel road for the bus to turn in and come out. Some buffering trees. There are 2 homes on the edge of the town property, which is the property across from the Shoreline Community Church and across from the police department that we're talking about. And we're looking at the hub itself would be more in the southwest corner of that property. The BSC group finished the survey of the property, I believe, this week, and that's necessary for us to go to the town commission and get approval. So we need to be able to bring our survey of the property, since we didn't have one at town hall, and some basic mapping to planning for referral and zoning for approval. I did send a request to zoning to see if we could do a kind of an overview of the project at their special meeting in August. The engineer is also contacting our contractor to make sure that they complete the sidewalk repairs on the ramps that I discussed with the board previously. These are the repairs requested by audit, DOT's audit. Much of the remaining items on the punch list will be done after Labor Day. We've had 1 change order, which was signed by Tim, $1,200, which of course the committee approved, to put in additional curbing on Shore Road by Cross Lane. This was also okayed by the DOT. There are 2 amendments to agreements for our engineering group that have been requested for signature by Tim. I'm not sure where those stand right now, Tim, but it was additional cost of $2,500 for consulting during construction. That was a non-eligible cost, and then eligible cost of $4,000 for construction services, and those would be coming out of our incidental budget that's allowable under the grant. You have seen those, right, Tim?
I don't know. I'll have to huddle back with you on that one, because the amendments would have come from Kurt, I presume, right?
That's correct, and the committee recommended that you approve those.
Okay. I'll look for them.
Okay. And then I know that the contractor sent his second invoice. Again, it kind of went out of order like the first one. It came to town hall before going to the engineer for approval. So I think you signed it, but it really needs to get approved by BSC Group. And then the committee will also make a recommendation at their next meeting.
Yes, excuse me, but I sent it along to Kurt to be signed, and I don't believe I've seen it come back, so I'll have to ask him again. That's application 2.
Right, yeah. He feels that, and I agree with him, that we need to have the contractor complete some of the things that we've requested them to complete before they get another check. So in general, the ineligible costs, which are the costs that we've contracted BSC Group for during the project, primarily for work that the town doesn't have people on staff to do. is about $24,000. There were some other costs that I think Tim said you could take care of under the Selectmen budget, like legal and the easement, which makes sense because the town has been using that corner for that easement by the Easy Mart for a very long time without legal standing. And so the about $24,000 is ineligible costs that are municipal costs that we must apparently go to town meeting for. And I know that on our agenda, I noticed you're going to be talking about going to town meeting. So are you planning on putting those costs on town meeting?
Well, I think we said some time ago that because of the favorable contract with Laverio, that the ineligible costs could fit within the appropriation. So there's been no effort to have those be funded by the town. I think we need to carefully look at all the elements here, and certainly some of the costs beyond the $42,000 for the hub could be pushed, and one would think that number would fit in the difference between what was committed to the contractor and the $400,000 appropriation. So I think on the 10th we'll go through it again, but I think for some months now we've been saying that the ineligible could come out of the appropriation, that the whole $400,000 would not be used for extras beyond the contract exclusively.
Well, I know you've been saying that, but the committee has said otherwise. So just for the record, there's not total on that. The ineligible costs under the state grant, I think, are different than what can be covered under the $400,000 appropriation by the town. So if those if you're trying to cover the ineligible grant costs with the grant money, I think the DOT might have some issue with that. But
no,
I look forward to discussion on the issue.
Maybe you don't fully understand how it's going to work. The town appropriated $400,000 for the project. That's unrelated to the grant. There was an equal amount of revenue. So if under the appropriation we spend $260 on the contractor and some extras, and then we do another $42,000 for the hub, that's grant eligible, I believe. However, there's still a gap between those expenses and the 400, what's appropriation. So we can spend the appropriation money on the ineligible without having to go back to surplus to get money. We were very fortunate to have a very aggressive bid. So if we go ahead and spend more money on things that were not part of the initial project, yeah, they might be reimbursable, but on the other hand, the ineligible's got to be paid from the mill rate. So I think we need to get that sorted out, because I think the Board of Finance, I don't know what month it is now, it goes back several months, was of the impression that the good bid would not make it necessary to either the Board of Finance appropriate money or a town meeting.
Well, I think there's been a lot of discussion on that, as you know, between you and I and between the committee. So all I can tell you is the $24,000 that have been utilized for the ineligible costs need to be paid for somehow, and if we pay for everything per the current budget, based on what we got from the contractor last week, our construction budget is over by about $18,000 and change. So I look forward to having that discussion next week with you and everybody.
These expenses you reference are things that have come up after it was learned that the contractor had an aggressive price. So the more you load onto it, the more it's going to go over. But I think we have to...
But the BSC requirements were not. I mean...
The what?
Except for the additional costs for BSC were, one, because the schedule was extended, and the design for the transit hub was indeed an additional cost. That's $6,000. That was indeed an additional because we got such a good bid from the engineer, and that's a good thing, and it should be treated as a good thing. So we're able to do more with the grant.
Well, we'll go through the numbers on the 10th, but I think we have to keep in mind that there is no amount more than the $400,000 in the budget, and certain things have been handled by the Selectmen's budget, but not. Something's got to give, because if they come in with $105,000 for the transit hub, that's just too much. So we need to sort that out. Right now, there's no funding for it above, and I think the last word was these ineligibles are to come out of the $400,000. So we need to, you've been working a spreadsheet, and we need to have it clearly doped out. But I think we cannot commit to anything above the $400,000 all in.
Well, we will have to discuss that because I think there's a good reason to ask for an appropriation. So, and we've been trying to have that discussion. As you know, I volunteered to come to the Board of Finance or have our group come to the Board of Finance, and you wanted to handle it, which is fine. But as a result, I don't think maybe all sides have been aired before the Board of Finance. So that's my update on the sidewalk project.
Okay, good. The next one is the Ferry Road. The tree commission spoke with Bartlett tree experts to get the wisdom of an arborist about the trees on Ferry Road. And so the arborist has come back with some thoughts on if the sidewalk's to be on the north side where the trees are vulnerable, to do some work to prepare the trees that will remain for the sidewalk. There will be some removals, not much at this point, but certainly not as much as was originally discussed. But there would be some preparation of the remaining trees in terms of feeding, and when the walk, there's been discussion about putting the walk in at the current width to go over tree roots. Perhaps that would be less damaging to the tree roots, and then resume back to the 4-foot width once you pass the roots. And so that's all being looked at. But the tree outfits, they have what's known as air spading. It's kind of like a pressure washer type thing. They can blow the dirt out from under the roots and push them down. And then there's root shaving and root pruning. And so we want to get more of for the ones that are in particular problem, to get a case-by-case plan for each tree, with a hope that by doing one thing or another, we can save most every tree. So that proposal has come in. It needs some discussion and review by the tree warden and we want to have the tree warden and the arborist talk together and, as I say, have a specific plan for each significant tree, with a hope that we can do minimal removal. So that will unfold here during August, and I think we'd be probably a couple of weeks we should be more informed about that. Once we have that information, then the committee will get together, make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and then we should be able to start revise any budgets because of tree work in particular, and then see if we can get this thing on the road for a late September, October installation. It'd probably be some plan revision as well, but I think we should be in good shape with the money for all that, because, as you may recall, the original budget had funds for the whole project, and then when the steep grant came along, the steep grant took over a majority of the funds required, and so we still have funds in the budget that could be employed for any extras that we have to have here. So I think we'll know more when we meet next time on that. The transfer station, we are going to be putting that on the town meeting agenda that we'll get to a little later. But I think the selectmen have heard the outline of what is contemplated, and that same figure of $163,000 would be asked to be approved at the town meeting. And once we approve that, we would then have the town meeting ideally on the 16th of August, and then if the town meeting approves the proposal, then it could go out to bid following that. The next item is the Soundview issues. Frank Marotta here. Frank Papalardo and I have been working on various numbers, which trying to detail what the costs are for the town and for Miami Beach to operate, to provide the services we have to provide in Soundview. And that would give us what we spend. Not that we expect all that to be covered, but at least it would detail the expenses. And then secondly, there's been some talk about what the parking fees are and what they might be, and also the private lots, their annual permit fees, with an eye toward perhaps generating some additional funding. As we know, Miami Beach must handle the crowds on their beach with their own mill rates, essentially, except for what the town does for them. And they have said that they spend about $40,000 on security and another $13,000 on beach cleaning. They're not able to charge people who come on the beach that are not residents a visitor's fee of any sort, so those funds come out of their own tax rate that they pay to Miami Beach. The town does provide Miami with an increased stipend, but it's by no means equal to what they have to spend. So there'd be some talk about trying to help Miami out because they bear the brunt of it. I think some of the rationale is that the town has a number of parking spaces in Soundview between the town lot and the street parking, and in fact the permit fees which the private lots pay. So there are a considerable number of people who park in those facilities and go to the beach. Obviously, the residents of Soundview and the residents of Miami Beach also go to the beach, and the ones who come from Miami Beach, why they pay their taxes, and local people who have parking passes and people in Soundview who walk, that's a good number as well. So it's a conundrum for them because they have to pay the charges, but they cannot control their finances very well. So this would be in anticipation of looking at things for next year as opposed to this year, but we want to have an accurate rendition of the numbers and then come up with any conclusions we may wish to make.
Tim,
yeah.
Was there any discussion or follow-up from the last meeting on the closure of the town lot earlier than was expected, and that it kept town residents from being able to park when they went to utilize businesses on Hartford Avenue?
The closure time is 8 o'clock. They have to be out by 8. So that is staying the way it was before, earlier in the year. It was earlier last year, as you may remember. And the town residents with passes may park for free. Right now, I think there are 10 designated spots in the lot. What? 7? Okay. And that number, there's been discussion about increasing that number for residents. However, if a resident comes there and the lot isn't full, but the 7 are occupied, then the town resident can park in a non-town spot. So there has been some discussion about increasing the number of resident spots. The 8 o'clock, I know that the police believe that the later you stay open, the more difficult the crowd gets. But on the other hand, some of the businesses, such as the Carousel, are open later, and it would be helpful for them to park there. So it's a difficult one to reconcile. So that's under review as well. Okay, the 4 Mile River dredging, we opened some bids today for the study to actually I guess you'd call it a survey of the engineering services to dredge the area that's silted in. And I think since we heard Michael Barnes, I understand it's a larger area that would be looked at than just what was discussed at our earlier meeting. I think we were talking about something like 30 or 40 feet by 300 feet, something like that. And I think this would be a larger distance, something like 1,000 feet, and it might be more the river from a study standpoint to understand where things are. I think the Port Authority would like a broader look at the whole area that was dredged before. We had 4 firms that submitted bids. The Harbor Management Commission, the chairman was a little surprised because he thought that this would be a more modest price. The numbers ran from $18,000 to $29,000, and so at this point, I think the commission is going to look at the proposals, and inasmuch as this would not be something that their resources would be able to support at that level, I think they may be wanting to speak to the Connecticut Port Authority about some additional funding to help with a study, or perhaps to do a portion of the study that would be significantly less, but would at least get some of the raw information that they're seeking to determine. I guess if the Port Authority were unwilling or unable to help them out with some additional funding, they would probably try to do a portion of the study that would give them some good direction, and then see where that takes us. And then if the whole study were necessary to get the certificate of permission from the DEEP, then perhaps the funding would be available at that point for the entire study. So we will stand by on that. But they will be contacting the Connecticut Port Authority, because I do recall that they do have some additional funds left over from the prior dredging. I think better than $250,000. So maybe that would be a resource for them. Okay, then concerning the sale of the 2 town parcels, we did receive appraisals on the parcels, and I spoke to each of the parties that expressed an interest in purchasing the parcels, and one was willing to pay a fixed amount that's slightly less than the appraisal, and the other party felt that the value that the appraisal showed was too rich for the blood, essentially. If we would, I guess in both cases, be willing to negotiate, we might be able to work something out. But I think in terms of the appraised number, both parties, they were thinking of slightly less, or a good bit less on the value. So I think we need to see what flexibility there might be on the town's part, if at all, and take it from there. I was also contacted by another party who has a parcel that there's a very, very small town. It's not an actual parcel. I think it's a portion of the road goes by the property. The only other abutter indicated they would have no interest in this parcel. So this is not a discrete parcel, so I believe it would have to be either surveyed or somehow, I guess survey is the word, because I think it was the road used to curve around and be part of this person's property, and now it looks like a rectangle, but I think it's part of the road parcel, so it might require some extra work. So we're going to look at that some more, and that might be a third parcel in the mix, but we're in the very early stages of that. So what I'll do is I'll write up something for the selectmen and on the two that are further along and see what we may want to do on that. And if there's some flexibility in our pricing, that might work. Otherwise, we'd say this is the deal and we can't change. So I'll get something out to you on that.
Yes, this is Mary Jo. Did you make a decision not to advertise these parcels to anybody else?
Well, the deal would be that once we got appraisals, we would go back to the person who was interested, and so that would be part of the decision. If we have the appraisal, that we could advertise it or could contact the abutters and say that we have an appraisal and this is the value. Is anyone else interested at the appraised price? And if not, then I think we're probably done. Or or we could do that, and if nobody responds, then we could consider the offer by the person we've been talking to.
Thank you.
I think there's probably in each case about 2 abutters that might that we would need to contact. Okay, turning to new business, we have the Attorney Collins prepared a call of a town meeting, and I'll just, since Mary Jo, you didn't receive this yet, it'll start out with electors and citizens. Did you see it? No, you haven't seen it, have you?
No, you have not sent it.
Okay. So it says, electors and citizens eligible to vote in town meeting, and all interested persons are hereby warned that a special town meeting will be held on Monday, August 16, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. in a meeting hall, Town Hall. Special meeting will conduct an in-person only. The meeting will consider and act on the following items. Number 1, whether to appropriate $52,000 in connection with the town's response to the COVID-19 virus during fiscal year 2021, which amount the town reasonably expects will be reimbursed to the town by the U.S. federal government. 2, whether appropriate $42,000 in connection with police ranger overtime incurred as part of the town's response to COVID-19 virus during the 2021 fiscal year, which amount the town reasonably expects will be partially reimbursed to the town by the U.S. federal government. Number 3, whether to appropriate $40,000 for unanticipated expenditures made in connections with the town's response to Tropical Storm Isaias during fiscal 2021, which amount the town reasonably expects will be reimbursed to the town by the U.S. federal government. And 4, whether to appropriate an amount not to exceed $163,000 from the town's undesignated surplus to construct a new scale house building at the town's transfer station. And if we approve that, it would be today's date, and that would be signed by the 3 of us. During the Board of Finance, we were informed about the first 2, and then Nicole told me about the tropical storm money. But we are, we're expecting, tropical storm, I have a figure on that one. I think we're probably could be as much as 99,000 from FEMA that would be coming in.
For
The tropical storm.
as much as 99.
Yeah, and that's for emergency protective measures, debris removal, volunteer services, and some administrative. Now this submission is, I think the debris removal has been tentatively approved, as well as the protective measures, which would be roughly 93,000 of that. That's work in progress with FEMA.
So you need a motion for that call?
Yeah.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
You know, Chris and I saw the bids from the transfer station at our last meeting, but we've not seen it. At least I've not seen any of these calculations. Is there a way that the Board of Selectmen could review where these numbers came from and why we're in this situation?
Well, I think Phil was here, was he not? Didn't he make a presentation to us?
That's what I just said. We received that from Phil at our last meeting. We saw the bid for the $163K, but for the other items, we've never seen this information before.
Well,
So I find it hard to approve something. I don't know the background. I don't see the math. You've given us some numbers and I don't see it.
Well, during the Board of Finance, under the emergency management budget, there was 46,087 on the virus that was put under emergency management, and then that grew to around 47,000 between May and June, and Nicole recommended 52,000 because these amounts keep trickling in. Some of this would be for the greeter and other expenses that are still occurring that would be reimbursable. With respect to the storm, the expenditure was 39,638, call it 39, and that has been rounded up to 40,000. So this is.
What are you going to present to the general public? I mean, I think I'm asking a question that somebody from the public would want to see the math or understand this more. What are you going to present to the general public? Maybe
Well, these.
I mean, I'd like to see that too.
These
Not
are.
at this meeting for the first time.
Yeah, well, we don't have an envelope full of bills. These are things that were spent by the town for those categories, and also for the storm, rather the storm and the police and the COVID, and so these have been spent probably in some cases all during the year, and then we're filing for reimbursement for that. You know, I could. Dave Roberge is here. He could amplify on some of that as well, but it's in the monthly reports on the budget that we receive, and so I think it's all going to be more than covered with the revenue coming back from the federal government when we finally receive it. Do you want to add anything, Dave?
If the board would like, or the selectmen would like.
Would you like to hear Dave say anything more about this?
Sure.
Stand by. Why don't you come to the middle here?
Sit there.
Yep.
Mary Jo, can you hear me? Okay. Where do you want me to start, COVID or the storm?
Your choice.
Well, we might as well start with the easy one. We'll go to the storm. As you remember, Storm Isaias hit us back in August of last year. And with expenses, the best of my knowledge, I believe we spent about $39,000 or $40,000 in expenses to deal with the storm. Our total claim...
Can you identify what some of those expenses are, Dave?
Yes.
Example.
Public Works labor and contract services mostly for tree removal and debris removal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Of that, the total claim placed to FEMA, where we were able to charge off, besides our straight time labor for Public Works, we were also able to charge off our overtime labor for Public Works under debris removal, along with all the contractors that Ed used to remove trees, cut down trees, and also the chipping and removal of the final debris pile. That totaled out on FEMA's end to $112,337.05. Our award of the total eligible amount of that 112 came back to $84,252.79, just for the debris removal aspect. So we're getting back more than we actually paid out in regards to labor and contract services. For category B, which was emergency protective measures, we were able to run and total up $12,126.19, which included the operational period of the Emergency Operations Center, along with police department overtime during that storm event. Of that $12,126.19 claim, we qualified for 75% reimbursement of $9,094.64. Additionally, due to our volunteer resource services of fire and the fire department, we were able to claim an additional $7,894 for volunteer resources. Of that volunteer resources, we're able to receive back $5,921.17, which totals our total 75% reimbursement back of $99,268 and change.
That's it.
Now for COVID, for the period solely between March to June of 2020, we completed our submittal to FEMA for public assistance, and our eligible amount that we submitted was $116,381.03. The 75% federal share reimbursement, which we received in March of 2021, was received for $87,285.77, leaving the 25% applicant share of $29,295.26. Now, the federal government on February 2nd, 2021 maximize the assistance for the FEMA directive to adjust the federal cost share from 75% to 100% for all eligible work under the public assistance category B, which was emergency protective measures. Our original 25% share, which would be the municipality's out-of-pocket expense, is also reimbursed from the federal government. So that $29,295.26 is also coming back from the federal government. So everything that we spent and put in as an eligible amount totaled $116,381.03, and that total amount is in the process of being returned to the town. We've already received the $87,285.77, and we're awaiting the $29,095.26 to come back from the state. I have already received notifications that these amounts will be coming to us, but for the remaining dollar value, the check has not been issued, or the voucher has not been issued yet. It's in the process somewhere.
Thank you, Dave. It's really impressive, all the work that goes into this, and particularly as things change with COVID. It's impressive what a grasp your department has on the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the finance office was busy with end-of-year auditor and other end-of-fiscal closure items. They were not able to assist us in finishing off the July to September of 2020. That's still outstanding to be submitted. Now that they're finished with their prior obligations, speaking with Amy this afternoon, we're able to get back online with the finance office to be able to pull documentation to start working on our July to September of 2020, and then subsequently we'll be working with the October to December of 2020, January to March of 2021, and March to June of 2021 reimbursements. Currently, the federal disaster is still open until the 30th of September at 100%. I've been told today by my contact from Demas, who handles the grant programs up there with FEMA, it is not official yet, but they anticipate that after September into October, November, and December, they anticipate this disaster continuing, but they anticipate it going back to a 75-25 split.
So that's the September of 20 date?
No, September of 21.
Oh.
We are still, everything that we submit up until September 30th of this year is 100%.
So we have 4 more quarters to submit on that basis.
Yes. And now that I have finance office is able to come back and start helping us again, they have time enough to devote to us, we'll continue submitting the other quarter reimbursement requests.
Yeah, and I guess over this period, the actual expenditures have cut back significantly from that first quarter, I guess. So
yes, they did. We have an anticipated total right now for last summer of around $62,000 spent, and most of that was spent with the rangers and security points between labor of PD and labor of the rangers. So as was discussed earlier, this afternoon in regards to overages on the police department. Some of that is reimbursable back to us through this declaration. And then October to December, our financial investments on that has diminished down even more, mostly covering the security and the greeter positions here and any overtime that might have been spent doing board and commission administration for Zoom meetings or whatever. I don't anticipate, we did not purchase a lot of equipment or supplies through October and December, and also January through June we did minimal equipment purchases. I'd say, without looking at the numbers right now off the top of my head, I think the biggest expenditure that we had was for the town hall security force, working with the greeter and screening.
Mm-hmm. Jake, can I ask a question back on storm ICAS, just to do the math?
Yep.
I noticed that you said our claim was $112,000 and change,
Yep.
and that is for the public works, straight time, and overtime.
That was
So I
for
guess
that was for Category A debris removal. Go ahead.
And we got back over $84,000 from debris removal. But Tim had indicated then we're going out asking for the public to approve $40,000 for the storm. Where's the difference? Why am I not coming up with $40,000?
I don't know.
Well, it's the budget line. This is the amount above and beyond the budget. Some of it may have been devoted to public works budgets and so forth. So I think this would, 40,000 is what was pushed into the storm emergency management line. And volunteer services, you know, we're not paying anyone specifically for that. They're giving us labor in kind credit.
Correct. A breakout.
So, you know, I guess my question still holds. I mean, Dave was great about walking through the one category, but, you know, the difference between the claim and the award is less than 40,000. So how are we explaining the difference between this information to the general public that we're asking approval for? There's like $12,000 missing there.
We're asking for 40, but we're due to see a lot more than that come back.
I think you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're asking for $40,000 additional to balance your book?
Well, on this line in your emergency management, it says storm, 39,638.99. So we're rounding it up to 40.
Yeah.
And in terms of why we're at, if we spent 40 and we're getting 99, some of it is like the volunteer labor we didn't actually have to write checks for. The only other thing I can imagine, it's your submission is for some of these may be in other line items, I'm not sure, but it's the amount that needs to be dealt with financially is the 40,000.
The 39,000 and change that Tim mentions, I do not have that breakout sheet in front of me, but I believe it covers the expenses that we charge for our contract services for debris removal. So I'm looking here at the breakout of the the 112,000 claim and the 84,252 reimbursement. We have that broken out with $49,170.88 of force account labor regular time, which is Public Works, which is not recognized in, I do not believe there's any labor charges in that $39,000. It also covers $12,961.23 of force account labor overtime, and an additional $20,369.94 of equipment force account charge time. And it gives me $29,829 of contract services. So there may be, without looking at the breakdown of the expenditure report, I know at least almost $30,000 of that was contract labor from tree companies and Denali's for their, Denali came down and did all the chipping and transport of the bulky waste that we were able to pick up and clear for right-of-ways.
Okay. All right. That's helpful.
Okay.
And I think that's my point. I think people will want to see the expenditures that they're being asked to approve.
Yeah.
Make it clear. Show the breakout.
I am more than willing to participate if needed at your town meeting to explain this in more detail, and I will have a more clarified answer for the 39,000 expenditure. I'll have a breakdown of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you need a motion for that call?
For the call, yes, please. That would be helpful.
I'll make a motion for the call that was
Second.
read.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the call of the August 16th meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
What's the question? Discussion, please.
What's that?
I want to ask a question, please, Tim.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to be very clear. Then the ineligible costs on the Soundview Sidewalk project, the approximately $24,000 that the grant cannot be used for, that this is money that we would end up having then to return to the state of Connecticut from our appropriation if you don't approve this for a town meeting. So I want to be clear that you will not put this $24,000 on the town meeting.
Well, we need the Board of Finance approval and everything. Yeah, the reason for moving ahead with a town meeting as soon as possible is to get that building in place before it gets cold. And by the time we have the town meeting, then we go out to bid, that's another 2 weeks and construction and so forth. So, that's why we're doing a town meeting quickly.
I don't want to get into the debate. I think that this is actually a little late for this because, as I said earlier, I think that the transfer station should have been treated as an emergency. That aside, I'm asking specifically, if you don't put the $24,000 in eligible costs from the grant, the town of Old Lyme will be cutting a check back to the state of Connecticut, which they frown upon. They want us to use this money because it's ineligible to be used. The construction grant cannot be used for that, and I want to make sure you understand that, because if we were going to go to town meeting and ask for approval, this would be the time to do this. It's been almost a year that we've been discussing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess if we appropriated more money to do the ineligible, it's trading places, I think. Isn't it?
what we'd have to do is write a check to the state of Connecticut for the ineligible costs. We cannot use the construction grant for the ineligible costs.
Okay.
So,
But if we go to town meeting for the same amount, we're paying it that way.
well, basically, our appropriation then is $420,000. And then, anyway, I just want it for the record, because we've been talking about this for a long time.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess I would want you to think it through and see if we go to the Board of Finance, the Finance Board agrees, and there was $24,000 out of the budget. That is, what's the difference between sending back $24,000 of grant money? So we can continue the discussion.
Returning grant money that was meant for construction, you might be the first Board of Selectmen to do that.
You'd have to get approval to spend it, though, so it would be extra money one way or the other.
Can you guys discuss this at the meeting, at the 810 meeting? Can you guys discuss this on the 810 meeting, or?
Well, we may need another town meeting for the parcels that we talked about earlier. Those haven't been approved at town meeting. It's not like we have no more town meetings for the rest of the year.
Yeah, okay.
And I know Amanda Blair has something she wants to talk about having to do with open space as well. So there could be another town meeting, but I think we need to have that more fully fleshed out.
Well, you have that 810 meeting. The sidewalk meeting's on 810. You're talking about the town meeting again.
Town meeting's
so
16th. What's on the 10th?
Your sidewalk committee meeting. So you
Yeah.
guys can discuss that then.
True.
And there's still time to add it on.
Well, no, once you go, I mean, if we execute this, we put it in the paper as the agenda. You know, you need to get the notice in the paper minimum 5 days ahead of time and all that sort of thing. So you couldn't just put another item onto the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, so we have the meeting, town meeting item ready for a vote. May we, all in favor of the notice of town meeting on the 16th?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye? All right, thank you. Thank you, David. I don't know if there's anything else we need to go over. Oh, I guess,
High school,
yeah,
no.
stand by for a sec. We'll be probably talking about.
You're right.
Yeah. Last on here is the high school mural project. There is a group of people working on the mural project, which David Good is heading that up, and there's representatives from the community, and the mural is at this point likely to be installed in the school building, and it will it's still work in progress, but it's called the Sister Mural Project, and the way it's been structured, the towns of Lyme and Oline would partner up with New London doing murals. East Lyme would partner up with Norwich, and Saybrook with Willimantic. And a theme has been discussed, and I have a rendition here. It's kind of a welcoming table with individuals. It's not going to be exactly like this, Chris, but and so that'll be likely put on a wall in the school, and some of the students would be involved, and this is not a town government issue, but it's a group of people who have been working in this. Nancy Gladwell is one of the artists involved, and Thelman Halloran from the school has been involved. So it's a very interesting program, and so we will follow it along as it takes shape here. But there are a bunch of community partners, and there'd be funding coming from different sources to help out with it. So we will be hearing and seeing more about the mural. Okay, with that, we will turn it to public comment. We'll start in the room here. Anybody wish to make public comment? Roger, come on up, please.
As far as the properties go, is that going to be on the town meeting agenda for the 16th?
No, not on the 16th, because we don't have we don't have all details ironed out at this point, and because of the transfer station building, it could follow shortly thereafter. But you and I talked, and we also talked with the other landowner, and so we have to resolve issues with both. And we have this third one, which if it can move along, we could do it fairly shortly thereafter. So to answer you, it's not on the 16th agenda, but it could be in September perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough. I'll set up an appointment with you to straighten things out.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. Come on ahead. Hello.
Kathleen Tracy, 76 Hartford Avenue. Tim, I'd like to respectfully request that the first selectman be trained on the equipment that's used to make phone conversations available at the meetings. I've actually been to several meetings on the phone, tried to make comment, and after the first person comments, you say things like, oh, I guess there's nobody else there. In fact, I was there, and I talked to several people, and many of us are not able to get in. And I reported it to the selectman's office. Next time I went to the meeting, same thing happened to me. So I think you're not intentionally trying to bump me out. I wouldn't even begin to think that was the case. I think it's just a matter of getting trained on the equipment to make sure, because if there's only one person, there's probably more. How do you get to the second person? I hope that we can get trained on that so that the people have a voice who are not here. Mm-hmm. And the second thing, I like to have a shout out to the folks who work at the landfill and serve our town so well over all these years. I was hoping that we could declare an emergency to get a shelter for them that's acceptable now through the winter. They deserve nothing less. Also, every year the buoys are put up at Soundview Beach. They're put 200 yards out. I swim every year, every day. I go out to the buoys, it's 200 yards. This year, they are not 200 yards. There's 180 yards. And as a result of that, and for 7 weeks we've been talking. We talked to the commission. We talked to Hank. He said, oh no, they're right. They're not right. And all of us know that they're not right. And as a result, the boats that are parked right out to the other side of the lines, their fuels are coming ashore. I couldn't even swim yesterday because the gas from the boats are coming this way because the buoys are not far enough out. It's very clear. I don't know what we can do to get it. I mean, who has to talk to this man to say, put them where they need to be? We have another whole month of the summer left. It should be taken care of. We pay him, it should be right. And
So
it's
you
not.
maintain they're not,
They are not 200 feet. All of us know this.
Located in the right spot?
They're not in the right spot. They have not been. I mean, for 18 years, you can never stand in the buoys. I can stand in the buoys now. It's not right. I know. I mean, everybody says, they're so close, they're so close. You can look and see. They're not right. And maybe he just doesn't want to redo them. I don't know. But it needs to change. And on the weekends when the boats are out there, you can smell the gas on the beach. You can see I have pictures of the gas on the water. When the boats were further out, the tide took it the other way. Now that they're so close, it comes to shore. It's a hazard. It's
so
actually,
you're saying they're 180 feet?
they are, well, they need to go out another 20 feet. So I'm not saying they're about 180 feet. But yes, they need another 20 feet. That's right. And I don't know what else to do to make that happen. I've been there, again, about 16 years, and when I first came, there were 90 parking spots available in the parking lot. Over the years, that's been diminished, and on the streets. And over the years, it's been diminished down to 60. And I know that there's people who want to diminish how many people can come to the beach. That's how they control the beach, control the parking. But the reality is, it also controls how many people and businesses can come, how many people can come and support the businesses. The reality is, we have a very diverse, different kind of a beach. We have residents there, people come from out of town, and we have businesses. Most beaches are not like this. We want our businesses. We support our businesses. We like them there. It makes us who we are. But, when the carousel shop closes at 9:30 and we can't get parking after 8 o'clock, it makes it very difficult. And I don't want to change that part of the complexity of our neighborhood. Yeah, it's a challenge. But we had them open from 9 to 9 for years. And now, after COVID, it went to 7 o'clock because it's easier for the police. It's not supposed to be easier for the police. It's supposed to be a service to the people and service to the businesses. That's what it's for. And the reality is, there's a lot of things going on down there. Even with Miami Beach, we talk about, they have such big expenses. Well, I'd say to the Miami Beach folks, don't have so many people on personnel when you have the police there, and then you go around the corner and you have 2 more Miami Beach people. Don't need it. Stop paying them. Save us money. Save you money. And so, I have an issue with that. And parking. Does the fee need to go up? Yeah, double, triple, do what Clinton does? Not right. If it was $7 for 2 hours, go up to $10 for 2 hours. That seems fair. But I'm not in favor of trying to diminish further how many parking spots. And if we have 7, they're talking about making 14 for the town. I'm like, there it diminishes further. And I'm saying, we've always generated a lot of money for the town. And so it's like, if you keep it open the hours that they were, and you keep enough space, you're going to maintain that. Otherwise, you diminish. And I think there's just a really negative attitude about what's going on at the beach. I hear people all the time, there's all this bad behavior. I go every day. And every day I say, hey, everything good? Everything's cool, great. I go on the beach, I see it, and I'm not having a problem. We have, 2 bars that are on the beach. People drink. Does that create some problems? Yeah, that does sometimes. But it's been doing that for 16 years since I've been there. I bought the house knowing full well that. What are you going to do? You deal with that and you move it on. We have police that will deal with those people. But recently, they just put up this big orange fence on the other side of the pavilion on Soundview Beach. How many fences do we need? This big, ugly orange fence? We have a beautiful community, and now we have this ugly orange fence. Stop! Take that fence down, and they also have a fence that's connecting the 2 buildings in front in the alleyway. It's an illegal fence. It's blocking. It's not right. Who puts it up? The ranger kids did because somebody had a problem. Somebody had a well, solve it with the people. Don't create a problem for other people by solving the problem for this group over here. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know if you even know that there is that orange fence there. Have you heard about that?
I've seen it.
You've seen it. It's like, it's ugly and it's unnecessary. I think it needs to be removed. And I hope that you will consider making sure that happens. And
okay,
that's
how much?
My time's up.
Okay. Yeah.
This is Mary Jo. I just want to get something correct for the minutes from the last speaker, Kathleen. The buoys, is it 200 yards or 200 feet?
Yeah.
Feet.
you.
I believe it's 200 feet, that's right.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Paula Malillo from 15 and 21 Portland Avenue, Soundview Beach.
Please, the last name again?
Malillo.
Malillo.
I just have one question. When is the gate across Pond Road going to be moved from the east side of the right-of-way B11 to the west side of B11? I understand, I haven't read it, but I understand that there was a 1997 agreement stating that no obstruction is to block the entrance to B11. A few days ago, an emergency vehicle came down Portland Avenue, I saw it, and was unable to get through Pond Road and had to turn around and go back, wasting precious minutes. And I think the gate is a hazard, and I wish that we would have it removed soon. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Frank?
Frank Morano, 13 Hartland Place. I just want to reiterate what Catherine says, is that we keep on losing parking spaces and losing parking spaces. And it's like the town wants to drive us out of business. The first thing. And the second thing is that orange fence that they put up. It's hideous. And, it represents all alignment. People were saying, why did you put up the fence, meaning me, the pavilion? And I wanted no part of it, and it was a surprise to us. It just got thrown up with no discussion, nothing. And I'd like it removed as well. That's all.
Now, is it on the west side of Swan?
No, it's on the east. Yes, it's on the west side of Swan.
Is there one on the other side as well, or
It
just
touches it. I mean, you can do it. It's inches away. I have just the ropes, and it's nautical, pretty, and it just, there's a boardwalk that we provide, and it's on the east side of the boardwalk, and it just hugs our boundary markers. It's not even inches away. It's very ugly.
and the reason for the fence to be put up was what?
I have no idea. And
The town, Public Works put it up?
Public Works put it up, I believe, at the request of resident Trooper Weber.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Hello, Dee Vowles, 17 Hartford Avenue. My concern is I sent a letter to you, Tim, and I was wondering, are letters to be read as part of minutes for a meeting?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's a long letter because it had a whole article from.
Well, the article was a long article, but the letter was just addressing, again, the closing of the town parking lot to keep the hours at least until 8 o'clock. We can't necessarily equate less hours as limiting bad behavior. We have very wonderful families that come down to the carousel and want to use it in the evening. That's when the hours are 7 to 9. And we are finding that a lot of our customers are having a difficult time finding a place to park. And they need to have access to the parking lot beyond 7 o'clock and even beyond 8 o'clock. We have some workers that have town stickers that park in the parking lot, and we don't want them to get tickets because they work until 9 o'clock, and that's the place where they're parking because we don't have ample space behind our property to park all of our employees. So keeping the parking lot open beyond at least until 8 o'clock and maybe beyond.
It's supposed to be open till 8 o'clock, is it not?
Well, there have been some times when it hasn't been, and we just are making sure that it will continue to stay open at least until 8. and if not, even considering it to be beyond that.
Now, don't you have parking in what's known as Joe's parking?
Well, it's not our parking lot. We are running it for Joe Martino's nephew. And we oftentimes leave that open so people can, park there. And we'd have to, but they don't always ask us, coming into the store, and we say you have to go around the block, and there is someplace for you to park. Mm-hmm. But town residents just assume that they can just go to the town lot and park for free, and that would be fine.
Yeah.
But it is something to consider. It never was a problem before, but seems to escalate this year.
I guess what we were hearing from the police was that the later the lot is open, or unattended even, it used to be unattended, and but they say there's a lot of trash left, and it's quite a mess. So unfortunately, there's a conflict between keeping it open later and some of the.
We can't always equate keeping it open later with bad behavior, because there's a lot of people that are staying later, and they're perfectly fine.
And there's the street parking still.
There is, but the street parking gets filled.
Yeah.
And then, the spaces all the way up the street, if there are 17 spaces, we do like to think that we have more than 17 customers at the carousel beyond 7 o'clock. So it's just something to consider. And it is something that's family friendly, and we'd like to continue to keep it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else here? All right. Anyone on the phone with a public comment? Okay. I guess next item is other business. Okay. I might jump in. Dave and I and Michelle Noren were talking about what's going on in the state about COVID guidelines and so forth. We've had a pretty good run with not requiring masks, and the fact that in the country there has been, I guess the word is a surge. I personally wonder if it's among the people who've been vaccinated, what the statistics are versus the unvaccinated. And in Connecticut, we were down to a pretty low level, and things have increased for sure. So I know within our health district there have been recommendations that vaccinated and unvaccinated people should wear masks inside of public spaces. We have been operating for a few weeks now without masks, without incident, and so to do the mask routine, I'm sure would be a comfort for some. It would obviously change the nature of where we have been, whether this is, I know the mantra has been that people who have been vaccinated could be potentially carrying COVID and transmitting it to others. So it sort of makes you wonder, if you got your shots, and we're going backward here, what good is the shot after all? We were told that if you had your shot, if you caught something, it would be minor, you wouldn't be going to the hospital, you wouldn't be risking death. So, and of course now the recommendation is that masks be utilized in the buildings and perhaps in the grocery stores and everywhere else. So I think Dave might give us a little commentary on what's going on in the emergency management world, and then we can talk about it amongst the selectmen here.
Yeah, Tim, while state is coming up, I mean, I'm going to strongly say your comment that makes you wonder what good the shot is really inappropriate. That shot has saved lives.
Of course.
Whether you got midday or whether you got the other two double shot requirements, that has saved lives. That has kept people from getting ill and from going to the hospital, and it's kept people from dying. You might want to amend your statement. That really is off-putting to me.
What I was indicating is that those who have the shots don't need to be overly concerned. We should have decent immunity, and so now it appears that the unvaccinated are at risk, of course. I'm not besmirching the fact that we got the shots. What I'm saying is that by making everyone mask up, and who knows where it's going, if you're going to be anywhere, you might be required to have a mask. It seems like having the shot doesn't count for much. We should be protected. That's my point.
Well, I'm glad you made that clarification, because the Delta variant is highly transmissible, and everybody has that data, and it's very available, whether you have the shot or not. Yes, there are breakthrough cases, without a doubt. The vaccine was not 100%, wasn't even developed to be 100%. None of the 3 vaccines are 100%. Just like the flu vaccine many people get, that's not 100%. So if people thought it was 100%, they were listening to poor data. It is not 100%. However, it is highly, highly effective.
Okay.
With public health guidelines of social distancing, wearing your mask, proper hygiene, we're the country has been very, very successful. For those who didn't get their vaccine, this is the time to get it. There is no time to delay. We're protecting those that are unable to get the vaccine, either because of their age or because of their immune, whether they have issues with their immunity and can't either get the vaccine or hold the titer. The data on the titer is still being developed. We only got this shot approved in December. So let's recognize that. And for people that remember polio and other tragic childhood diseases, please get your shots. Don't delay. Don't be one of the people that you see in the news that say, oh, I should have gotten the vaccine.
I agree entirely. I am just saying that for those who have their shots, it seems like we should feel safe. We might get a mild incident or something of that sort, or it could be left up to the individual. I'm saying people want to mask up, that's fine, but I just question whether everyone needs to mask up, and ultimately we're back to the way we were during the height of the pandemic, where you couldn't go anywhere without the mask. That seems to be where it's headed.
Well, I hope that it doesn't get far. If you listen to Dr. Gottlieb, who's pretty much out there on all the newscasts every Sunday, he does not feel we'll get into the same devastating numbers that we saw last year. However, it still requires people to be thoughtful of others and of doing the right thing now so that we don't repeat history. Because you never know when the next variant is going to come along. And please remember that these shots were a miracle. They were developed with scientists working day in, day out in less than, really in remarkable time, doing things in parallel. So it's remarkable science, remarkable ingenuity and technology that will also be used as life-saving techniques for other diseases like cancer. So again, let's do the right thing. Let's learn from what happened to us last year. Let's not be. Let's do what we need to do to keep people safe and continue to have the numbers that hopefully not increase in Old Line.
David, do you want to comment on anything here?
Sure. Very well spoken, Mary Jo. The CDC last week came out with a recommendation and the Connecticut Department of Health adopted that recommendation and came out with it Monday. Basically, as you've heard on the news, they're recommending mask use for anyone indoors. So the question is, actually there's 4 questions. The first one is, should the town require visitors, and should we re-implement mask use inside municipal buildings? Should employees wear masks in common areas where they're not social distance? That was part of our original COVID response plan for municipal employees in town hall buildings. Since the COVID count started to go down, I know the Board of Selectmen had a lengthy discussion on this, and you opted to free down some of the mask use within the buildings. The question is, does the town want to, does the Board of Selectmen actually want to take the recommendation of DPH and CDC and re-implement mask use for inside town buildings? Now, according to Steve Mansfield, who's the director of Legislative Health, he has surveyed out his 10 towns that he serves and spoke to him earlier this afternoon during the earlier part of this meeting, and his consensus of his municipalities are, out of the 10, 4 are going to continue to monitor conditions, and if conditions decrease or do not improve and start to degrade, they will consider implementing mask use in their municipal buildings. 5 towns have opted to implement it with all their employees in all their town buildings. And those 5 basically are the larger communities such as Groton, New London, Norwich, and I forget the other 2. So looking at that moving forward, does the Board of Selectmen want to re-implement mask use for municipal buildings? And if so, the question would be, secondly, should the town continue with employing the greeter at the front door? The cost for the greeter right now through the end of September is still 100% reimbursement on their labor and wages. Come October, it'll be a 75% reimbursement through December.
Well, I think of right now, we can keep them till September.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, he's going on vacation. He's going on vacation. He goes back to school, but probably in September sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have reached out to a couple of resources that have given us the leads on the 2 individuals that we have had as greeters, and they've been very successful. So I reached back to those individuals and said, can you beat the bushes and see if there's any other interest out there? So that, for that fact of trying to find a replacement is already in the works.
That's sort of the other questions. I think it's just, you're going to have to monitor this. I would rather see it monitored and, take it month to month or selectman meeting to selectman meeting and see what happens in the future with the numbers.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Now if you notice...
Can I
Let me chuck this one out there. Let me throw this out there first, MJ.
Okay.
The population of the town is about 7,500, give or take. Now, the state of Connecticut has already been exemplary on the town of Lyme for having over 75% of its population getting vaccinated. That leaves, working simple numbers at 75%, that leaves about 5,600 and change, or 5,600 plus or minus people in town that have already received some type of vaccination.
Right, and that number was like 2 months ago too.
Yes.
So.
Leaving about 1,600, I believe, and change of individuals who have not been documented as vaccinated. Out of that 1,600...
Let me interrupt. Does that vaccinated include people who have immunity by having had the COVID?
No. It's based upon what the state of Connecticut came out and said that 76%, 76% of the community of Old Lyme has received the vaccination. So that leaves about 1,600 people who are left in our population who have not received a vaccination. Out of that 1,600, you have the entire age group from 12 and under who have not received anything. I do not know what that number is. Overall, 75% of this community has received some type of vaccination. So the risk factor here is going to be closely watched to try to find out, as our numbers go up, which we're over, I think it's 354 right now, as those numbers go up, will these persons who contract COVID, some level of COVID in the future, were they vaccinated or non-vaccinated? Was it a reoccurrence or not?
Are there statistics on hospitalization versus, I mean, if somebody gets COVID and they're vaccinated and they might not even know it, they might think they have a cold or something.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish between something of that sort versus something that might be more serious, such as a hospitalization?
That I don't know, other than asking for specific data from Legislate to the state. And I don't know if they're sharing that information down at this level. Right now, all they're sharing publicly that I receive is just the increase in ticks of hospitalizations and positive tests. We don't know the specifics of those positive tests. MJ, you had a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I appreciate the numbers. I mean, that just says how well our community has done in getting vaccinated and taking care of each other, and I really applaud Old Lyme. But when we say we're going to monitor, what does that mean? I mean, Chris threw out some suggestions. So what did Steve Mansfield say monitor meant?
With my discussion with him, I interpreted his comments as other municipalities are going to continue to operate as they are currently and monitor any upticks within their community. If that community starts experiencing an elevated rise in positive COVID tests or diagnosis, they feel that they would, at that point in time, drop back and reassess the determination if they're going to implement a town-wide municipal building mask use.
Okay. And I guess over the last 2 weeks we've had about 8, if I recall right, about 8 cases of COVID that attributed to Old Lyme. I
do not receive any information anymore from Legislate regarding an increase or documentation of a case being proven.
I think some time ago we had 340 something, and so it's drifted up a little bit, but over what time frame, it's hard to tell. Because you say it's 350?
354, I heard.
54. Yeah, I was following what Olin has been tracking in Limelight, and that's where, for the last 2 weeks, she's been tracking the increase in cases. So from last week, it was, I think we had 6 cases, and that was at 351, and you're 354. So we've had about 9 over the last couple of weeks. I think it's pretty close then. So, if I think that the data is pretty much indicative that most of the breakthrough cases and new cases of COVID-19 are due to the Delta variant. So, what would monitoring mean for us? Where would we say, okay, we're at 9 now. Is it 19? Is it someone that died? I mean, what does monitor mean to this board? I personally think, why would we want to be, not that we're scientists, to make that call? 4 out of the 10, or 5 out of the 10 are already implementing. So which group do you want to be in? And personally, I think we've seen enough. I think that if the CDC is requiring it, if the Department of Public Health is strongly recommending people mask up in public buildings, why would we not want to agree with that? That's enough monitoring for me.
And this is where I back out and you guys have a discussion.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if obviously there's a trend slightly higher, but I don't know that it should trigger going back to the masks full tilt. And I just remember, the stores and everything, one-way aisles, it was pretty dismal. Now, I don't know what the trigger would be, but it would seem to me it ought to be more than 6 or 9 cases over a couple of weeks, or how can we quantify the severity too? Because if the cases are relatively mild, it may be something like a cold or something, who knows? You could say, why don't we mask up and outside, inside, and, start working from home? I don't think we're to the point where it's that sort of a alarming trend. So I guess I'm not a scientist either to say that there's something. I think it's easy to pull the trigger and say mask up. It won't be bad for you, but I think the personal inconvenience and everything else, I just wonder.
Well, right now it's a recommendation, not a requirement.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then everybody still has the option. They can put on a mask if they want. Right now, I don't think personally it's necessary, but that's my vote.
Okay, so
But in
Chris,
2
you weighed
weeks,
in. Tim, my vote is in our public buildings to protect our employees and the public. It's not too much of inconvenience. I heard one of you say that. I agree with you. That we implement masking. We are not going back to staying at home. We don't have that authority to quarantine. And that is not even on the table. And God knows, we hope that this will be short-lived. If we do the right thing, if we do the cautious and careful thing, hopefully we'll sooner than the 18 months we all suffered through. And the other data that's really profoundly important to share is what the CDC said, that you could be asymptomatic or have, as Tim said, cold-like symptoms and hardly bothered by it. But if you spread that to somebody else who doesn't have the same immune system as you do, or somebody that's not vaccinated, or a child, the results could be deadly. Certainly different than your cold example. So my vote is that we follow the recommendations of our experts and mask up in our public buildings, both employees and visitors.
Are we voting?
So you want to do a vote, Tim?
Sure. Let's do a vote. Should the town hall resume mask wearing in the town hall? And I guess it would be town buildings.
Well, require
Require it.
as of this moment.
Yeah.
Or recommend.
No, require. Because if you don't require it, anybody can wear a mask that wants to.
The motion should be, so the town of Old Lyme follow the recommendations of the Department of Public Health and CDC and recommend that people mask up in public buildings.
Well, that doesn't accomplish what you're looking for. The recommend gets back to people that can choose themselves. I guess the motion, to get to the meat of the matter, the motion should be, should the Board of Selectmen require visitors and staff in town buildings to wear masks?
I second that.
Okay, so now we vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? I would just say, I think everyone who wishes to wear a mask would certainly be free to do so. And I think we monitor it, and if things have a discernible trend, a negative trend, then we can revisit it, even telephonically if something breaks loose. But I
don't have a problem revisiting this every selectmen's meeting,
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Yes, a couple things. Well, more than a couple. I just want to offer my congratulations to Austin Hack, Liam Corrigan on their outstanding Olympic feat of representing the United States and certainly putting Old Line Rowing on the map in the recent Olympic rowing event. So very proud of them and congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the Board of Selectmen concur on that one.
We did a resolution to that effect, yes.
Yeah, that was for July 24th. That was awesome. Now they've raced, and I just want to take these two outstanding young men. The sewer project, I have asked that we put that project on the agenda, like we put all our town projects, and it doesn't seem to happen. Why do we not put the sewer project on our agenda?
Well, if something doesn't have much happening, we don't put it on. And I think when something comes along that's meaningful, we can put it on. So we will put it on the next one, because I think there have been a couple things that would be worthy of comment.
Thank you. I take that, but I also request that even if there's nothing that you deem important, that we put it on there. It's the most expensive project that this town is involved in. So it confounds me that we have other projects that there's no news and we put those on and not this one. The master plan for the Halls Road Improvement Committee, we had a very good presentation by the co-chairs, I believe, of the Halls Road Improvement Committee the last time we met. And I'd like to know what the next steps are.
They're having another open house this coming weekend. So I don't believe there's anything more that I can say. Obviously, with respect to the street and the public improvements, ultimately BSC the engineer will be making recommendations about pursuing grants or so forth, but without the sidewalk designs and so on and other designs, we can't really, there's not much to say at this time.
Okay, I would imagine at some point, though, that this board is going to have to show support for the master plan, correct?
Yeah, it's going. They're working with the zoning commission on the village district. I think they've done a good job at refining the plan. As Edie Twining says, the public improvements are something that the town would become involved in. The private improvements, once the zoning piece is done, will be up to the private landowners.
Okay. I attended by phone the last Board of Finance meeting, Tim, and during the meeting you indicated that the Grassy Hill Bridge project is still a potential project, and I was confused because we had many discussions with the Board of Selectmen, including both Chris and I, motioning and approving the project to go forward. What is your stance now on this project?
Well, the Board of Finance recommended it continue. The Board of Finance is the one that will controls the money piece. So if we are to get the Army Corps of Engineer and so forth, then ultimately we will need to have the town share of money. We don't know until bids are received actually what the price will be. So we made our recommendation, and I think the Board of Finance will need to, this budget season, discuss putting money in the budget for the town share, which if it's, until we really get the bid information, it's a guess what the new number is.
I find that confusing because we had urged the town to put half now, half next year. It seems to me like all we've done is push the project off a year to make the budget look good.
Well, you're talking to the wrong person.
No, I don't think so. I listened to you at the Board of Finance on this project quite a bit. Carry over for 2 employees. I brought this up at our last meeting. And I tried to talk with you in person before I went on vacation, but you weren't in. We've got 2 salaried employees. That information was shared with each of the selectmen on their situation. What is going on with either paying these people out or carrying over their vacation? What is going on with those 2?
Well, I'll be talking with Nicole. I have had a conversation with both, and I think we have an end result subject to speaking with her. So I talked to one of them today, so that I think we have general consensus, and I'll be talking with Nicole.
So this will not be something that, even though the board was given this information, that we're expected to weigh in on?
I don't think so. I mean, it's an administrative thing, and I don't know that we need to have a Board of Selectmen vote on vacations.
Well, for what it's worth, I think that we should be treating our salaried employees equitably. So I hope that, like I said last time, I hope that you're documenting your decision-making process, since we're not involved in this, in case there is any repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
The Beaver Deceiver discussion, we had a lengthy discussion, and it's not on this agenda. You were going to touch base, I think, with the DOT to determine the possibility of getting a Beaver Deceiver set up for the culvert at I-95.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any feedback for us?
No, I haven't been able to get to that yet. Got to find the right person to talk to, but time has not allowed.
Okay, well, hopefully you could put that on the agenda for next meeting. Forum on the EDC, that was another thing that I brought up a couple times. Have you had any time to plan that?
Howard Margulis and I need to work that out, so that has not been scheduled, but we have an outline, but we need to get that framed up and get scheduled. Will facilitate. That'll be mainly an EDC forum, but I'll be working with him on it. So we have to schedule that.
That'd be great. And then I guess lastly, I just want to note that our last meeting was July 19th, and at that meeting, apparently the day we were meeting, the town of Norwich passed a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis want to congratulate the town of Norwich. They approved it 6-0, and they even created a health equity committee to work on action points of the resolution. So I applaud them, and I think their community will benefit from their work. That's all I have.
Very well.
Motion to adjourn?
6:15. Okay, Mr. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Get the,
About making that appointment. We talked to Michelle Hayes about making